Really excited to talk to you about my final project as a postdoc here at Stanford, looking at recovery and specifically in women rowers. So let's hop into it. The key question that we think about with athletes is, what does peak performance look like and how do we get there? And when we're thinking about the athlete, the sport perspective, it's a lot about winning. How do we actually get to the point that we're trying to achieve? From a scientist perspective, how can we integrate there and figure out, okay, peak performance, yes, it's a championship, but what is happening in the body or on the molecular level? And that's what we aimed to investigate. And so I'm going to do a very brief overview of this large study design, just so you have an understanding of what we're going to talk about. The first step was to identify a team, and so we were grateful and really appreciative to work with Stanford Women's Open Weight Rowing. And the key component of this is integrating with staff. So we built that relationship over months of time, because it's not just, hey, we have an idea, let's do it. It's you're working with people and athletes, and you have to actually align with what they want to know and how that aligns with their training and all of that. And so we ended up having 23 rowers. You see a +7 there because we also had coxswains. Their exercise looks very different. So when we did exercise testing, they didn't participate in that, but they did surveys, and we also had some other components they participated in. Time point wise, we came in at 3 different time points. So we came in at preseason, which was October of last year, end season, which we deemed January, and then postseason, April. We call it postseason, but it's as close to we can get to NCAAs without it being intrusive to what they're trying to achieve. And then, of course, longitudinal full season beginning to end, we had some wearable data there as well. But these are the time points we came in and actually collected samples on athletes. We had them do a cute training bout. This was chosen by staff. Some of the athletes were like, why did you choose a 2x5K? We did not. But that's because it's built into their program. And so that was part of the conversation of, if we're going to choose a training bout, it's something that they're used to doing and that they're going to repeat at these time points, which you can imagine is a little bit different. Your preseason training and then going into your postseason is going to look pretty different. But we were really lucky that we were able to repeat a training bout that was fatigue inducing. And then these are the outcomes that we collected. I'll be talking about the recovery aspects. So we had some subjective measures, which were surveys of perceived recovery and then rating of fatigue. We also collected their CMJ data. On the physiological side, we collected blood and saliva with an arm prick, a finger prick, and they put something in their mouth to collect saliva. For our training bout, we had to do this at baseline immediately after. So we went through like 35 rowers, and we had to get everything in like 7 minutes. It was very fun, and it was very chaotic. And then we also did biometrics, or we had them wear wearables when they slept throughout the entire season. I'm not going to be talking about that aspect, but just briefly the recovery. Again, these time points we collected at rest, immediate following the training bout, and then 24 hours after to see what kind of profiles we saw that changed over time, again, at these 3 time points. So think about, we collected these things at 9 times. So getting into lactate, we measured lactate in a finger prick before, post, and 24 hours after. And so the little blue is what we gave athletes. We gave them a report to say, what are we collecting? What does it mean? And how did this change over time? So pre-exercise, you can see their postseason was actually a little bit elevated. And actually, they're mostly over 1, which we found pretty interesting. And we kind of assured that they didn't just bike there. And then we collected their lactate. And then their 24 hours post, still at the postseason, is a little bit elevated. C-reactive protein, kind of this marker of inflammation. This is not a statistical line, but in general, the dark orange is the postseason, and we actually see that decreasing based on like comparison of baseline and midseason, which is kind of interesting. Also, probably a good sign. And then for LDH, we don't really see any changes here from like baseline to postseason. So resting lactate is up entering the postseason, and resting CRP is down, which they don't really trend in the same direction, but we just thought that was interesting. Getting into some recovery status, we used a validated questionnaire, just throwing that up there so you can see what that looks like. We did not give them the expected decline performance. That's all like the actual questionnaire. We just gave them the 0 to 10. And we saw that the pre-exercise perceived recovery was actually up, but after exercise, perceived recovery was down. So again, we're thinking that's kind of interesting. We also did rating of fatigue. And again, this was their questionnaire. I love the little figures. They're very cute. So we gave them this 0 to 10, again, a validated questionnaire. And the question is, how would you describe your fatigue level this week? And this is what we saw, that their fatigue is a little bit higher in the postseason, which again, is interesting. So that's what we saw. Perceived recovery is up at pre, down at post, and then fatigue is up. But the question is, we see all these things, and as we alluded to, they won the national championship. So we're looking at these molecular markers, and that's all cool. Science is great, but how do we actually integrate those and connect that with performance? Because molecularly, things might be happening, but then they're still performing like amazing athletes. And so we have to think about that for scientists, like being scientists. And with that, I want to say thank you, and thank you to the team. Some of you are here, super appreciative of that, and excited to answer questions.